Today I'm going to be talking about the most important part of every Amazon FBA business. Yep, for those of you that have done any research into this particular business model, you'll probably already know that I'm talking about product research. More importantly, I'll be talking about Helium 10, which is not only the tool that I use for product research, but also my day-to-day business operations. What's up, you guys? It's Ben and welcome back to my channel where we talk about everything there is related to selling on Amazon. Therefore, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, consider subscribing. Now, I get this question all the time. Why Helium 10? There are so many other product research tools out there that are a bit more user-friendly, maybe a little bit cheaper. The answer is simple, guys, and that is the accuracy of the information. Now, I have tried many different software packages out there and they all come with different types of flaws. Some just take ages to load up the relevant information. Some are really expensive, whilst others will give you really misleading data results. Given that I've been selling for over 4 years with over 60 products on Amazon FBA currently online, I can actually see data and compare it to the estimates from Helium 10. And they provide by far the most accurate figures out there, which is crucial in making your decision as to which product you should go ahead with. Let's be honest, each and every single one of us are going to be investing anything from £1,000 to £5,000 in our very first product. And we really don't want to make some stupid mistakes based on wrong information. And with all of that being said, let's get right to the video. Alright guys, so the very first tool I want to talk about today is Helium 10's Black Box. Now this is their bread and butter. This is probably my favorite tool out of all of the tools out there, and I will be showing you quite a few of them, not just with product research, but just general day-to-day business operations. But Black Box basically what allows me is to evaluate various products in different niches based on the categories, on the criteria that I give them. So for example, if I'm looking into beauty, I can say what kind of products am I looking for, what should the revenue be, what kind of review should it be, number of images, and so on and so forth. Now you can go the simple route, okay, which is here, but I actually want to show you more of the advanced features that this particular software actually provides you. So the very first thing, I'm just going to show you a little bit. I'm going to go from not Amazon.com, but I'm actually going to go to the UK market. But as you can see, they provide every single market out there, and there's a lot of markets now that Amazon is actually selling in. The next thing you're going to do is select a product category. Now, I always tell students, start off with something simple, something light, something cheap, and something like that doesn't cause you too many issues. And in my personal opinion, let's go for something, probably one of my favorite categories out there, and that is going to be beauty. Okay, so straight away, all it's going to do is basically look into that particular category. That's it. No other categories are going to be taken into consideration. The next thing you want to do is basically look at the review counts. This is where you will tell Amazon, or tell Helium 10 more so, look at only products within a certain amount of reviews. And in my personal opinion, I always like to keep this around 50 maximum. Okay, so what I want to do is I only want to see products that have started selling relatively early on, or relatively soon actually. There hasn't been selling for quite some time, because if they have been selling, let's say for 2-3 years, chances are they will have more than 50 reviews. So now by putting this in, straight away I will start looking at relatively products that have been selling for 12 months or under, at least in my personal opinion. If they have been selling for longer than 12 months, they are not very good products, because customers are not very compelled in leaving reviews. The next thing is review rating. Personally, I'm going to keep that blank. Next thing is shipping size. Once again, there's a lot of here that I actually want to keep blank in my personal opinion, but I'm going to go through them anyway, just so you know exactly what they mean. Shipping size, once again, you can do large, small, oversized, and so on and so forth. I'm going to keep this completely unselected, but if I were to select one, it's probably going to be the standard, or small, oversized, standard parcel over here, okay? And the reason why I say that is because if you all of a sudden go into large, oversized, or small, oversized, whatever, that increases the risk of your product, because what happens if that product doesn't sell? If that product doesn't sell for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and you're now all of a sudden stuck with 500-600 units worth of, let's say, chairs, that storage fees are going to start creeping up very quickly, which is why in the very beginning I always tell my students is to go relatively small, because if they don't sell, at least you don't have a lot of fixed costs associated with that product each and every single month. Along this Helium tutorial, I will be giving you quite a few tips along the way with just product research, what to do, what not to do, so please stick to the very end of the video, because who knows, you might find out something useful that you didn't hear me say earlier on. Next up, weight. Now this is an interesting one. I will put something in here. And as you can see, it's in pounds, so we have to change from kilograms to pounds potentially. But what I usually do is for brand new students, I always say go to maximum of 2 pounds. So nothing too heavy, because if it is heavy, it's going to cost a lot of money for shipping. And with shipping rates right now being 3x to what they were back in 2019, you don't really want to overpay for shipping. And here's another quick tip, is that the actual product cost and shipping price has no link in between them whatsoever. The shipping price all depends on the weight and the size of the product, whereas the product cost all depends on how much material and how much complexity is associated with creating that particular product. The two are very, very separate. So say, for example, sheets of paper may actually cost very, very little to produce, but because they're very heavy in large volumes, they can actually cost you quite a lot to ship. Okay, this is just a very, very simple example to explain that, hey, the two are very, very separate. So in this case, I'm going to use 2 pounds as the maximum weight. The next thing, number of images. Now this, what you can do is basically use all of these criteria to narrow down the amount of results you have. So for example, I'm going to be looking for a terrible seller. Okay, so let's do this, for example, and I haven't practiced this before, I haven't pre-recorded, so I don't know actually if they're going to show me anything, but let's try it out anyways. Let's say that the maximum review rating is going to be 4. Okay, so 4 basically means that this particular product is not great. It's going to be 4, 3.5, 3 stars, or whatever. It's not going to be a great product. The reason why I choose 4, I'm looking for not such great products, because if people are leaving negative reviews but they still have relatively high revenue numbers, then that means people are complaining, but they have no other choice but to buy. And if I can come across something new, something different, where I can differentiate myself and maybe fill in those complaints, maybe basically have my product that, you know, customers won't complain about, then they are much more likely to start buying from me as those particular people that we're about to find. Next up, number of images, let's say a maximum of 5, because if a seller puts 6, 7 images, usually that means that they have put in a little bit of effort into images. Actually, let's do 6 actually. If you have a lot of images effectively, then that means you have put in a little bit of effort into your listing, and that means you're a relatively competent seller. And I want to go for sellers that are selling, but they're not great. They don't spend too much time on their listing given that lack of images. Their reviews are not that great either, but they are still selling. Variation counts, I'm gonna keep it blank. Title keywords, I'm gonna keep it blank. Listing age and months as well. This is quite an interesting one. Given the fact that we already put review counts at 50, I'm going to keep that blank. Number of sellers, blank. All of these are basically blank. The competitors, I don't wanna touch that. Now let's go on to the sales. The sales is a very interesting one, because this is where, first of all, it's actually price. I was going to say revenue. So price, we're going to do between 5 to 15. Okay. Now, what's the reason for me actually going to price and doing that? And there's a couple of reasons. The first one is, if you're a brand new seller, you want to go for cheaper products, because the cheaper they are on Amazon, the cheaper they are going to be on Alibaba. Okay, and if you're starting off with £1,000, £2,000, you really want to go down the lower end, because the risk is that much lower. And second, and actually probably even just as important right now, is with all of the economic downturns that we're currently experiencing and people's incomes actually being squeezed, more expensive products, £50 and above, people may not be able to afford them as easily as they did a couple of years ago. And therefore you are running a much higher risk by going for much more expensive products. So therefore right now, myself included and my students, we're now going for more cheaper products and more kind of like essential products that people are going to be buying regardless of what's happening in the economy and regardless of what's happening in their own disposable income. That is something that you always have to be aware of as well, as to what's currently happening in the economy and what kind of price points should I be looking into. Now, if you're starting off with 10, 15, 20,000 pounds, you may want to go a little bit riskier. But in my personal opinion, most of you watching this video who are serious about selling on Amazon, you're probably going to go this route, maybe 5 to 20, maybe 5 to 15, around that mark. Next up, probably one of the most important criteria that we need to put in, and that is the monthly revenue. And this is where we want to do the minimum of at least £1,000. and the maximum can be left blank, okay? And matter of fact, all the rest of these can actually be left blank as well. And this is what's interesting, okay, guys, is the fact that we're looking for a relatively terrible listing, okay? Review count is quite bad, number of images, maximum of 6, okay? And we're looking for a decent amount of monthly revenue. I mean, £1,000 in a monthly revenue is not too bad in my personal opinion, given the price is relatively cheap, between £5 to £15. Now, what I also find out, and I haven't seen this before, is the best sales month as well, where we can actually choose which sales month is the best for that particular listing. So for example, if we're right now, as the time of this recording is actually September, we can actually go back on the 21st and see, okay, what about October, November, December? We can actually see that these products sell extremely well around this time of the year. Now, the last time I was actually checking Blackbox, this wasn't around. So they clearly are continuously updating their software to provide as much value to potential sellers as possible. We're going to keep this blank for now just to see the results that we get. But as you can see, there is so much that you can choose to narrow down your products as much as possible. Now, let's have a look if we actually come across. And of course, we will come across quite a lot. But as you can see, look at all the criteria that we've chosen, and it still comes over 200 items for us to look into. And as you can see straight away, let's just see if it actually matches the criteria. Noir, volume lashes, Russian volume lashes, individual, and so on. Lashes, of course, I'm not going to be an expert at it, but let's just have a look if it actually meets the criteria. $11.98, yes it does. Monthly sales, we left that blank. 1,700 in monthly revenue, and then 3.8 star reviews, which is clearly not great. And the seller is not great, but they're selling relatively well. And of course, the weight is cheap, given that it's lashes. And then the best sales period, very interesting that this has now come about, is actually in the month of August. Age has been around for 55 months. Number of images, again, where we've put down 3 images. So all of this is actually now working for us. And this is basically what I use to get ideas. The next thing what I would do right now is actually go into volume lashes niche on Amazon and start looking, okay, are there many listings that have relatively poor reviews? Are there many listings that have a monthly revenue of over £1,000? So this is a great tool to start your basically product idea generation. So whenever customers or students come to me and say, hey, I can't come across any products, I have no ideas, what can I do? What can you please help me in one way or another? Usually I will tell them, go into Blackbox and start playing around with the settings. And this is 200 items for you to look into in just one category. There'll be another 200 if not more in toys. There'll be another 200 or not more if in travel, and plenty of categories that are currently available on Amazon. So the amount of product research you can do is pretty much endless, guys. Next up, very good one as well, Cerebro. Okay, now Cerebro is a very, very interesting one because this one actually allows me to do a little bit of product research. It helps me a little bit of competitor analysis as well, and it helps me a little bit with just checking out my own product effectively. Okay, so what it effectively does, it allows me, let's just try one of these, let's say. Okay, and what it allows me is actually shows which keywords my particular product actually sells or is indexed for. Okay, so here we have a simple product. It's just an example effectively of this pet face little toy effectively in the UK, right? And what's interesting here is actually show you which keywords does that particular product is indexed for, which is 3,422. But what's more important, it will actually show you the search volume for this particular, each and every single one of these keywords. Okay, so for example, dog soft toy, there has been 470 searches each and every single month recently, or at least in the last 30 days. Okay, and as you can see, the search volume is very, very important. The next thing I want to do is actually look at the organic ranking, and this is how it's ranked effectively. How it's sorted is by the organic ranking. So that particular product here, okay, is the very first one on Amazon for dog soft toy. Okay, it's also the very first one for puppy soft toy, and so on and so forth. But what you want to do ideally is you want to target the keywords that have a high search volume, because by just numbers effectively, the higher the search volume, the more chance of you actually making sales. So just because you're organically ranked on cat dog toy and it has a search volume of 68 doesn't mean you're going to make a lot of sales, given that it's not a very highly searched keyword. So if we actually now sort it by search volume, we will realize that this particular keyword doesn't rank that well for dog bed. Well, clearly, given it's not that product, but let's see what's like, for example, it's probably getting the most amount of sales for the term dog. Okay, it's also ranking quite well for handmade toys and games, given that these particular keywords have over 30,000 of searches each and every single month. Another one, puppy toys. Most likely a lot of sales come from that particular keyword, given there's over 23,000 search volume as well. So what you have to understand here, guys, is that you always have to target the keywords that have the most amount of search volume. Okay, so here what I will do, this particular tool, is I will use it for two things. Number one, I will use it for my own personal listing when I'm actually creating the listing, so I can actually figure out which keywords I should be targeting, which ones I should be including in my title, in my key features, and so on and so forth. And then I will actually be looking at my competitors as well and actually checking them out and seeing, okay, well, why is he ranking higher than me on this particular keyword and not this one? And I can actually do sort of competitor analysis as to which ones I'm ranking better for, which ones I'm ranking less for. And it's a really useful tool for many different reasons, and it's definitely, as you can see, my second favorite tool because I'm speaking about it early on, and it's definitely one of the ones that I use very often. The next thing is something we call scribbles. Okay, this is a very good one as well, and this is basically used when you are creating a listing. Okay, so if you're creating a listing, instead of just putting on the notes for your title, for the key features, whatever, I now use scribbles, and I will show you exactly why. So for example, here, what you want to do right now is type in all of the keywords that you have done through your research that people use to find your product. So for example, we're going to sell a yoga mat. Okay, so we put yoga mat, but it can also be called a gym mat as well. So I'll just put in gym there as well. Then it can be used for exercise. It can be used for him and or her as well. It can be used as a gift. It can be used for Pilates. This might not make much sense for you guys, but basically when it comes to creating your own listing, you need to look at all of the keywords that customers will use to find your particular product. And if I'm, for example, selling a yoga mat, it can be used as a yoga mat. It can be searched for as a gym mat, as an exercise mat. It can be as a gym exercise mat for her or him. It can be used as a gift. It can be cheap, and so on. Now, when you actually click apply, what it will show now is these are the 7 keywords that I have in my title. And what you want to do is basically include as many of these keywords in the title as possible, but also into the bullet points as well. And what I love about this is, say, for example, as I'm typing up the title, look what happens. So I say yoga mat for him, cheap Pilates exercise mat, right? And as you can see, they slowly but surely get crossed off each and every single time I use them. But what's also interesting is that if I use, for example, mat twice, it will have this little number 2 here. So what I can do is, as I'm putting down my bullet points, and if I, for example, put mat here, it will show how many times have I used that particular keyword in my bullet points. And what I want to do is I want to as many of these keywords crossed off as possible, so I have optimized my listing as good as it can possibly be. And this is what's really useful, because in notes you can't see that, whereas here it's very nice and easy to use. So for example, lovely gift for him, and as you can see, now gift has been crossed. And then I can do our gym mat, blah blah blah, and as you can see, I have used each and every single keywords that I put in the very beginning. Now usually in real world example, I wouldn't have 7 keywords, I would probably have 50 keywords, and I would try and cross them out as much as possible. And as you can see here, copy 7 used, how many unused, and I have used all of them. Once again, really useful tool, and actually underutilized by so many sellers out there. Now, the next tool I want to talk about is Helium 10 follow-up. Now, for those of you that have been selling on Amazon for quite some time, or even shopping on Amazon, you probably already know that Helium 10 basically is a great tool, not just for product research, but also actually for gaining reviews. And this is where email follow-up is really, really important, because if you're selling on Amazon, chances are you need to do whatever you can to get as many reviews as possible. The more 5-star, 4-star reviews you have, the chances are the higher you're going to sell, the higher ranking you're going to have, and many, many good things are going to happen. And reviews basically usually are gathered a couple of ways. First one is email follow-up, which is what this tool potentially does. You can actually also have insert cards as well, where you basically put in an insert card in a packaging, and effectively when the customer opens up the packaging, they can see that, hey, can you leave a 5-star review, whatever. You can also use customer early reviewer program and so on and so forth. But with the follow-ups, effectively, this is the easiest, most simple way of doing so. So basically, when you start selling a product, you will create an automation with Helium 10, and whenever that automation gets triggered, i.e. a customer buys the product, within a couple of days time, there will be an automation where it actually sends an automatic email to that customer stating, hey, thank you so much for purchasing our product. Quick question, what do you think about it? If you did like it, can you please leave a 5-star review? And as you can see here, I have been using this quite often, and this is the percentages. They're not great, but they're better than nothing. It's much better to use email follow-ups and get a few more reviews, because over time that adds up to a big difference. So here, as you can see, the order rate and conversion rate effectively is 5.78. So basically what that means is for every 100 orders, I get 5.78 people leaving a review. Okay, that's 5.78 that I wouldn't have had otherwise, given I didn't send any email follow-ups. And also here shows the request rate and conversion rate, basically how many people have actually requested as well. Okay, so it's very interesting. Some people, now the discrepancy here is only because some people actually opt out from any sort of emails from Amazon. So they might buy a product, but if they opted out any emails, then they won't actually get my email follow-up, whatever. So they just don't want to be bothered. They want to buy the product and they don't want to be bothered by that potential seller. And as you can see, orders delivered 1,505, ratings requested 1,408, okay, and ratings received. This is how many messages have been sent, and this is how many orders, and so on and so forth. As you can see, this is a really useful tool, and this is something that other softwares don't have. Other softwares purely focus on product research, or they will purely focus on the finances, or they will purely focus on the day-to-day running of the business, whereas Helium 10 has so many tools in all of the areas. So if you do go with Helium 10 and you do make that purchase, you're basically covered for pretty much everything. Okay, next up, alerts. Now, I've got to be honest, I wasn't using this until probably about 2 weeks ago, and I'm not going to go into too much detail as to why I'm using it now, but I will explain exactly what the alerts is. And as you can see here, is hijacker and product monitoring. What this basically does is, once you have a listing selling on Amazon, you should put that as monitored on Helium 10. And basically what this means is that if anybody ever jumps onto your listing, if anybody ever tries to change the price, the images, or whatever onto your listing without you knowing, it will automatically send an email notification to you that, hey, your listing has been changed, tampered with, whatever. And this is extremely useful, especially once you start selling quite a lot of products. As you can see here, I'm monitoring currently 70 products, 60 of them are for sale, 10 of them are not. Okay, in the last 24 hours, there have been 10 price changes. I've made those price changes, so it's all good. And 5 product image changes as well. I've made those changes, so it's all good. And these are the 7-day changes, as you can see, that I've made. Now, some of these, if I make the changes and I get an alert, it's fine because I've done it. But sometimes I will get an alert saying, hey, there's a new seller onto one of your listings. And I'm like, what the hell? And all of a sudden, then I will take appropriate action to make sure that seller doesn't sell onto my listing straight away as quickly as possible. Because if I don't use something like this, they may be selling for days, if not weeks, without me checking and figuring out that he's now stealing some of my sales. So this, even though I don't like using it, I don't want to use it, I really have to make sure my sales are protected as much as possible. Because even if they get to steal a few sales, well, that's profit that you potentially lost by not using this sort of piece of software. And it's extremely easy to set up. It's extremely easy to get started. So make sure if you are on Helium 10, if you are going to buy this piece of software, make sure to use alerts as well once you actually start selling and start monitoring your product. And then the very last piece of software that I actually like to use as well is the inventory management tool, okay? And this is the current inventory that we have here. And why I like the reason for this is because it actually shows me and it gives me an estimation as to how many days left of inventory do I actually have. And this is so useful because it helps me plan ahead. If, for example, it takes me a month for the product, when I buy the product, it takes me a month for that product to actually be produced. Then it takes 2 months for that product to actually be delivered from China into the UK, and give another 2 to 4 weeks to subject to some sort of delays. Then I know I need to have at least about 120 days of inventory before I order that product. And this tool in particular is really useful because, as you can see here, it shows average daily sales over the last 7 days. It says how many inventory did I have at the moment, how much is available, how much is inbound, and then most importantly, how many days of inventory do I have left. And as you can see, it goes all the way down here. This, for example, product, I have only 3.5 days left of inventory. Now I know that the product is in the UK, it's going to be shipped to the Amazon warehouse very quickly, so I'm not too worried. But as you can see, it's really useful, especially once you have 5, 10, 15, 20 products selling on Amazon, keeping track on each and every single one of them and making sure that you order in time and you know exactly how much to order is really important. And as you can see here, these ones are in red, basically restock them as quickly as possible. The ones in yellow are okay, you need to start thinking about it, and then the green ones are obviously perfectly fine for now. But again, some of these products you may have to airship, which means that you don't have to hold on to that much inventory because that product can come in very quickly, whilst others may take 3, 4, sometimes even 5 months to deliver. And that means I need to have a lot of inventory on hand before I order the very next batch. So all in all, this is a very useful tool that I use pretty much on a weekly basis to see, okay, how much do I need to order, when should I order, how much should I pay, and so on and so forth, to make sure I plan ahead. And right now, coming up closer to Christmas, this is one of the most essential tools on Helium 10 to run your day-to-day business as effectively as possible, because the last thing you want is running out of stock on one of your best-selling products and missing out on all of those Christmas sales. And that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. I really hope you found it useful. If you did, then please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.